though, it seems like that revolution against the Shah wasn't necessarily a religious one. I don't think Khomeini.
Yes, it was.
But I'm saying, don't you think Khomeini appeared to be a more moderate figure before he got there? You don't think that when he was living in exile?
No, I don't think he was more moderate. He was a true believer. But what he did do, because you did get quite a lot of the, I don't even know what to call them, the upper middle class deciding to go into the streets against the Shah and vote for him. He managed to lie. He managed to tell everybody that he was going to bring democracy, he was going to bring this, he was going to bring that. And oh no, a mullah will never be in charge. So all of this stuff, was a lie. And actually very gullible Western politicians believed him. At the time, the British government, maybe some in the US government thought, wow, we're going to get democracy in Iran. Let's throw the Shah over, our, decades-long ally, who, yes, was authoritarian. But I think the difference there was that in 1979, after a full year of revolution, and I just have to tell you, in New Year's 77 going into 78, Jimmy Carter and Rosalynn came to Tehran and they had a state visit, which culminated in a state dinner. And President Carter told the Shah that you are our greatest friend and an island of stability in the Middle East. Okay? That meant they knew nothing about the rumblings. Their ambassador there knew nothing about. 8 days later, the revolution started. It took a year, and 1 year later, Khomeini came back. 8 days after Carter's famous, you are my best friend and you are, the stability of the Middle East, which means that nobody knew anything. Or if they did, the message wasn't going up the chain. I mean, that's a simplistic version, but that's basically what has been happening. To this day, I'm going to just say, I think 47 years of Western policy to Iran has been rubbish. Literally rubbish. Literally rubbish. I think
in
the
the
only
sense
thing,
of the sanctions and the way that they isolated them.
Why? You know why? Because they focused only on the hard power, nukes, missiles, foreign mercenaries, never on the rights of the Iranian people. And the Iranian people are some of the most sophisticated people in that whole region, the best educated, the most female empowerment, the most technologically savvy, the best scientists, doctors, artists for thousands of years, right? And we just lump them all as quasi-terrorists. All the people of Iran never put their human rights or their democratic rights, not just at the top of an agenda, but anywhere on the agenda.
That's what I meant, Christian. Even with Khomeini, it felt like a bait and switch, not to the world, but to the Iranian people. That he said, we're going to give you democracy and to the world. And then he gets there and they start massacring everybody and imposing these religious customs, because I agree. And Wendy, maybe your experience there as well. If there is a country over there that seems most inclined to be kind of brethren with the United States, it's Iran. Their culture, their people, they seem much more aligned with Western sensibilities, no?
Well, without a doubt, as Christian pointed out, highly literate country, very sophisticated people, technologically, culturally, intellectually. Just look at Christian. So I think that
that's right.
I think there's no doubt that there could have been another story written here. But I think that the searing of the hostage crisis in 1979 lives with us forever. And certainly for my generation, it lives forever. In the same way that Vietnam lives with me forever. Madeleine Albright, with whom I worked both at the State Department and in business, really was a daughter of Munich, not of Vietnam, and had a very different view of the world and the United States because of that experience. And we all are a creature of our history. And this generation, as we're seeing, where Israel is concerned, I know my own daughter, young people around the world, yes, they think Israel has a right to exist and therefore the Israeli people, but they do not consider themselves Zionists in the same way that my generation perhaps did. And we see a huge split in any of the polling that is done. For the first time, the American public has greater support for the Palestinians than for Israel. And that's really astonishing. And it has to do with our own experience and Bibi Netanyahu's decades now of deciding how the world would go. I'm very, very much certainly feel horrified by what happened to Israel on October 7th. No doubt about it. But I'm also horrified about everything that is happening now and the rights of the Iranian people, not the mullahs, but the people.
Yeah, I'm always talking about the people. I mean the people,
right.
Not the structure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. The people are going to get left behind, I'm afraid, in all of this sound and fury.
Question. Could it be a Berlin Wall thing? Because I'm very nervous. We've explained all the possible downsides and the possible cynical deals that might be made around the back of the Iranian people to end this. But could it be, Wendy, John, I didn't cover the fall of the Berlin Wall. I wasn't a foreign correspondent yet. But it was like, no, until one day it happened. Now, it did have Gorbachev sign off, and the soldiers didn't shoot. And that was crucial, which will be crucial in Iran. But I wonder if you think there might be the space, Wendy, created by this war to allow that there.
Christian, you should be a journalist because let me tell you something. That is an incisive question and one that we had not considered previously. So, you know what? Send me your resume.
Can I work for your show?
Oh, please. Absolutely. Anytime. I hope you like basic cable money because that's where it's going. Wendy, what about that question? I mean, I think there's always that possibility. Sure. Anybody who lived through the Berlin Wall falling and the fall of the USSR and all those things, what is your feeling on that? These guys could collapse and there could be a sort of different renaissance.
Look, I think we would all find that a wonderful outcome. I think that we don't have an organized opposition in Iran. There were organized groups in Europe and ready to take the seeds of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And we had West Germany, of course.
Right. Who could help usher it.
Who could help usher in that change. Perhaps that can happen here. We didn't have a Shia-Sunni split in the same way that we do here. Nonetheless, that was a hard integration between East and West Germany. We'll see how that plays out in Merz's visit with the president today, the Chancellor of Germany. But look, nothing would make me happier, not in terms of our politics in the United States, because I am not a fan of President Trump's, but for the Iranian people, I'd be delighted if there were such a situation.
Christian, you covered Arab Spring, and it does bring up, I remember being in Egypt right before, it wasn't before Mubarak fell, but before Morsi fell. And the Arab Spring had that feeling of young people and a democratic movement. But what we saw was exactly what Wendy is saying. Without having the infrastructure or organization, the only groups, because civil society has not been fostered necessarily in those countries in the same way, the only groups organized enough were either the ultra-religious groups like Muslim Brotherhood or the military.
Yeah.
And so what you don't get, and maybe this is, the legacy of Arab Spring, you don't get that fostering of that democratic society that, is, from bottom up. You get top-down autocracy either through religious actors or military actors. Is that the problem with the general structure there?
Yeah, I think it was absolutely the problem there. And what happened is that because the Muslim Brotherhood had civil society in its pocket, having been the sort of humanitarian lifeline for so many Egyptians through the mosques and through their foundations and this and that, they were the only clear organized group first. And when there were elections, they won. And then the military said, no, and they had the weapons. So what it's the weapons versus, and nobody wanted to see what they thought may be radical Islamic groups taking over any of these countries. It was different than Iran in that there was no outside intervention. Here you've got Israel and the United States bombing, and I fear very much for the backlash come in generations to come, because I think it's very controversial to be liberated in a Muslim country by Israel and the United States. But I know a lot of people are saying whoever it takes, whatever it takes. But I worry about that for the future.
Are there tent posts within Iranian society that would make them better ground for that type of democratic infrastructure to rise up?
I think that you have a very young population. It's very, very young across the board, but most especially it's essentially called like a Gen Z uprising right now. These are people who are incredibly plugged in. But I worry a little bit that they're also incredibly plugged into TikTok. So there's potentially a little bit of an unrealistic notion of how you have to do the grassroots and the groundwork, and most particularly unifying. What you don't want is to have an opposition, wherever it comes from, who's going to just replace one hegemony with another, for want of a better word, one.
Right. Which is what happened in so many of those other countries.
Superiority, to another. So I think just like in Syria, where the new president, al-Shara, who's been in now just over a year, his biggest challenge, and he's known that it's his biggest challenge, but he must get over it, is to unify a very fragmented country. So that any leader has to do that. And do not forget that there is a genuine 10, 15% fundamentalist population in Iran who are very religious, who could be brought along in a new Iran, but they're not nothing, they're not nobody. And they need to be brought in and unified. I think Israel has to decide what it's going to do. I mean, there's another whole front open now, again in Beirut. There may be a land invasion of Lebanon, again by the Israelis. But they are, under cover of our inattention, regularly bombing a new free Syria, who the U.S. happens to be friends with.
That's a leader Trump likes. I mean, that's
right.
That almost seems like his model, which is, I like a strong man, but I want a strong man that
who's my
seems
friend.
reasonable to me and is my friend, because he has no compunction with strong men throughout there. He loves Putin. He loves MBS.
But my fear, Wendy, and you can take this away, obviously, because you know much more than me on the Diplo, but that Israel does not want a strong Iran, no matter who under who. I think that they want to fragment it and have a chaotic Iran, and that would be a disaster, in my humble opinion.
I certainly don't think that Bibi Netanyahu wants an Iran that has any strength whatsoever.
Really?
Yes.
So even if they're not a theocracy, he would object to a powerful Iran.
If they are still financing proxies in the region, if they still have missiles that can reach Israel, if they still have an enrichment program, none of that is anything that Bibi Netanyahu wants. And let me just say on this political point, it's really important. I actually, with Ann Patterson, who was then the ambassador in Egypt, went to meet with al-Sisi. He was not the president of Egypt yet. We also met with all the different political factions and political groups. They were just beginning. They were babes in the organizational development of what you need.
Is this in between Mubarak and Morsi, in that space, that year, I guess?
Yes, in that space. Right.
Right. Okay.
And we met with all these political groups, and they were terrific and wonderful, but had so far to go to have the power and the capability to rule a country like Egypt. And we met with al-Sisi, and Anne and I came out of that meeting, turned to each other and said, he's going to take over. He's going to throw Morsi in jail, and he's going to take over.
And was very popular when he did it.
And was very popular when he did it.
That year of chaos
yes.
had created such, as Christiane said, I think the people just wanted to feel safe.
Yes.
And as though they were in. Wendy,